Thank you, and welcome back to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name is Eric, and I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 75th episode this week, where we'll be discussing the end of the Patriots training camp and preseason, previewing their upcoming season, the potential highs and lows, what to expect, as well as previewing the Patriots opening game versus the Cincinnati Bengals. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter/X and Instagram at Past 300 Level Pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day, as well as at our website at pats300levelpod.com. So, Kevin, I know we just had an episode a week or two ago, sort of previewing, talking about training camp, discussing the preseason to date at that point. Any big takeaways for you after that point to where we are right now? Anything that's happened in the past couple of weeks that stood out to you? Anything that happened that you're excited about, not excited about? What are your big takeaways?
So nothing really too surprising, I think, that happened. So I think from the remainder of what the preseason looked like, from what the roster kind of shakedown looked like, I don't think there were really many surprise cuts, um, really at all. I think everyone kind of mostly expected what was going to happen, Zappy being cut, big name, but everyone kind of thought that was going to happen. I think the biggest surprise, I guess, for me would be Kevin Harris, but that's a third running back. So nothing like
Yeah.
nothing too
Him and
surprising.
Isaiah Bolden.
Yeah, Bolden was actually a surprise one for me because he's made some strides and he's big, fast, and something kind of the prototypical um characteristics that they like. They
Yeah.
emphasize speed and they emphasize RAS a lot, and is kind of the guy that they want. He is on the practice squad, so he's still with them, but
I have a
um
tinfoil hat conspiracy theory as to why he was cut.
okay. We'll get on that in a second.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll get on it now. So and
Okay.
then because I'm
I
gonna
feel again, I'm not in the building, so I have no idea. My thought is it was probably between him and Dial, the sixth round pick, sixth or seventh
hmm
round pick, and I felt like they cut Bolden because they had a they were pretty confident that they could pick him up on the practice squad,
hmm
but also they wanted it to be known that this front office administration's first draft class, everyone signed and made the 53-man roster.
I could see that. I could definitely see that happen because that's something that they did tout afterwards and
It's the
something
first one
that's
since '97
yeah.
that every single draft player is on the 53-man roster. Granted,
hmm
some of it's due to injuries and stuff, but
Yeah. And not to take anything away from Marcel's dial, and I don't
yeah,
want to pull a Greg Bedard and have him have that turn into my face, but he was pretty awful in the preseason. So like, and again, you can't like Bill has said before, you can't tell everything from preseason,
yeah,
but you can kind of see how what your coverage skills are. Because I remember even when um Butler had stood out in preseason years ago, and I remember
yeah.
watching him and I was like, oh, this guy actually can kind of cover. And I remember looking up like who it was at the time. So you can see characteristics there, and stuff that I think Isaiah Bolden showed last year, where he
Yep.
kind of stood out then too.
Until he got
So
hurt.
until he got hurt, yeah. So yeah, but other than that, really not really many surprises. So he'll probably be back with the team soon, I would think, once an injury happens. Who knows if they Fox? I don't know if they'll Foxborough Fluid someone anymore. So
Yeah.
well, there's a lot of unknowns kind of going into the season, but nothing terribly surprising. Even that leads us into, I think the thing that anything I'm more excited about going forward. I think the start of the NFL season. I'm
Yeah.
excited for. Definitely college football. I'm not really excited about the Patriot season, just for what our expectations are. I think there's things to be excited within that. I'm not excited for how they'll end up this year. I think we
Yeah.
all realize this is not going to be a high winning team this year. Nor I don't think they believe that. If they do, the I need whatever they're sniffing. Um
Yeah.
and
I think it depends on how you're going into the season.
mhm,
If you're going into the season like many people have, including ourselves, the past few years, where it
mhm.
ends up being disappointed, then yes, it's not a good season for me specifically. As we'll get to later on, I'm not expecting much success roster wise
Mhm,
or record wise. I mean, but there are pieces on the roster that I'm excited for moving forward. Where
mhm,
we talked about it before in the offseason episode, where previewing free agency and the draft. The Many of the pieces on the team are in place. They just need to hit on a quarterback, wide receiver one, and then a left tackle. they hopefully hit on the quarterback, but he's hopefully not playing most of the season. They still
Hmm.
need a left tackle, and you could argue they still need a wide receiver one, maybe Polk or Baker turn into that. But other than that, there's many young pieces on this roster that you can look forward to where even though they might not end up a playoff team, if you see strides in some of the younger players, if if Christian Gonzalez is able to continue where he was playing where before he got hurt last year, if Keon White's able to take that big step here too, if Pop Douglas is able to continue doing what he's did last year, some of the younger players as well, if they are able to step up, if Duggar is able to become an all-pro
Hmm.
type safety, there's a lot of good pieces to look forward to. So it depends on the lens that you're looking at it. Since I'm not expecting many wins, I'm looking forward to those aspects. And if they end up playing well, then I'll be happy. If they all take step backs, or then we can have other discussions.
Yeah, this like I was gonna say, I get distracted because I thought I heard something was the TV upstairs. Was is that this season's all about how you get built to 2025.
Yeah.
So this season is not how you finish in 24. It's how you're going to be successful in 2025 and what are you going to do to get there and how are the pieces going to improve to get you there. Is May going to, if May plays, and hopefully it's not till either the offensive line is, well, definitely once the offensive line shows something,
Yeah.
or towards the end of the season, is he showing you anything? And I think he might, because I'm cautiously optimistic with May because, like we said, we both wanted him. He's got the most talent. He's arguably one of their best playmakers already on the team, besides I would say Douglas and Marcus Jones and maybe Stevenson. He can do a lot off script. So him and Joe Milton can too, but well, neither here nor there on him. Um, and I think the other kind of excitement, non-Patriots related, would be Boston College winning last night
Yeah.
against FSU, and it'll be interesting to see as the season goes on. Is that a reflection on Boston College, or is that a reflection on FSU losing 2 games in a row, and their quarterback? So interesting to see there. A little nugget there.
Yep.
Happy to see Bill
And I
O'Brien do
wasn't sure
well.
if we were gonna get into it, but I mean, since we did, there some good over the weekend if you follow college football. A lot of Patriot ties. So
Mhm.
Boston College beat FSU, I believe 28-13.
I think that was right.
And then at University of Washington, where Steve Belichick's the defensive coordinator, again, not a great opponent, but they beat Weber State 35-3. Bill Belichick was at the Navy game over the weekend, and they won pretty decisive win too. So again, first few weeks not always the best opponents, except for BC. They did have a
Hmm.
big opponent in FSU. But if you're not the biggest college football fan, those are some teams that, if you like the Patriots, you might want to just start following this year. University of Washington with Steve Belichick, and then BC with Bill O'Brien and Bergen Najarian.
Yeah, and Washington too. Not only Steve Belichick, Bill's been helping out there as well. So is Mike Lombardi.
Yeah.
So is the Pete Carroll,
Yeah, Pete Carroll's son's the
and
offensive coordinator. Jed
mhm,
Fish,
and
Patriots
Jed
former
Fish is the
quarterback
coach.
coach, as their head coach.
Yeah, so interesting group there to watch and see how they do.
Yeah.
One other tidbit too is I think I don't know too much of the news or what even really happened other than just seeing the clip of what Mayo was saying, but I think my kiss of death is already starting to come upon Javon Baker
Yeah.
with his latest incident at the airport. I don't really know exactly what happened. He said something about either to a cop or about a cop. I don't really know exactly what happened, but based off of what Mayo was sounding like, it doesn't sound like he's off on the right foot. He may be getting the why am I blanking on his name? The cornerback,
Oh, Jack Jones.
Jack Jones kind of treatment zone, but we'll see.
Oh, and then
Hopefully,
one more tie for Boston College, not to the Patriots, but if you're a Rhode Island native, Will Blackman is also an assistant coach on Boston College as
yep.
well. Former Hendricken star, former Boston College star, and then went on to be cornerback on many other teams. But
All
and
right,
kicker.
now we've kind of side shuffled a little bit.
Yep.
Back to the quarterback competition that we had, and this was not a competition at all. I think actually, in this is the way that I see it. I don't know how you said. I don't know if we've ever talked about this in the group chat, but I've had a theory in my head, just the way that Mayo has been talking. So it could be one. It could be just the way he's talking because he's an idiot, like I think he might be, or just the way that he's actually feeling, where as we know, he's not the one controlling most of the offense. He says AVP is the head coach of the offense. He defers a lot to AVP, to Wolf. I'm starting to think, based off of even what Mayo was saying the other day when saying that May has outplayed Brissett, which obviously technically has in the preseason by just
Yeah.
watching. It's something you don't go saying because it just puts you in more hot water. But I wonder if Mayo wanted May to be the starting quarterback, wanted it to be an actual open competition, wanted to play him because he gives them best chance to win, even though it's not good for his development, whereas everyone else is actually trying to rein him in, saying, no, this is not right. We're not doing this and what have you. There's not going to be a competition. We're not giving him first team reps at all. Like, it's not an actual competition where you look at what happened with Mac Jones and Cam Newton. They shared 50-50, basically 50-50 of the reps with
Yeah.
first team. May has barely gotten any first team reps besides some garbage time ones in practice. I think he's only gotten snaps from David Andrews a couple times, and has barely
And
gotten any
then
snaps
with that
there.
too is even though Jacoby Brissett is new to the
Mm-hmm.
Patriots since 2016 or
Mm-hmm.
2015, 2016, whatever it was, 2016, he was in the same Alex Van Pelt offense last year. And
Mm-hmm.
he started more than a handful of games. Either last year, 2 years ago. Sorry,
Two
last year
years
he
ago,
was
yeah.
with Washington,
Mm-hmm.
but 2 years ago he was with Cleveland and Alex Van Pelt. So he knows the offense. It's not like he needs the reps to know the offense,
Mm-hmm.
get the know the plays. So again, I think they were preparing to have Jacoby Brissett play the entire season.
Yep. Yeah, I think the decision to start Jacoby, I think, is definitely the right one because
Yeah,
you don't want to be putting the what good can come, what bad can come out of having him sit? Really
yeah.
nothing. You just delay the inevitable of him
You
starting.
lose 1 year of a quarterback on a rookie contract,
Hmm.
but you're hoping that he develops and grows more from that
Yeah.
than the potential negative aspect of him
Hmm.
playing. And then the thing with him too, compared to people say, oh, look at CJ Stroud last year. CJ Stroud was played in a played better competition at Ohio
Hmm.
State than Drake May did. His footwork wasn't as much of an issue as Drake May's was. And then also he had a very good offensive line with a very good left tackle. And he
Hmm.
has pretty solid wide receivers in Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks there last year was he in I think Brandon Cooks was with Dallas, but he had some wide
Hmm.
receivers there as well. He had a good running game. So they didn't have to rely on him as much as the Patriots would have to
Hmm.
rely on Drake May this year.
Yeah, and if people forget, the Texans, because basically for trading Deshaun Watson, had a haul of picks
Yeah.
over the years, and were rebuilding a, a couple years before that, so they were able to stack pieces up so that way they could support a rookie quarterback. Whereas right now, you basically don't have a tackle
Yeah.
unless they're going to be playing a when and went tackle, which it looks like they hopefully
But
are
you're
going
still
to
missing a
now.
left tackle.
You're missing a
You
left
you you
tackle, which
have
is
one tackle instead
yeah,
of yeah.
which is the most important part. So they don't have a tackle. They may not have two, depending on what they do with the one new, but it looks like they're going to do the right thing and put him at right tackle. And the wide receiver group is very raw and young.
Yeah.
And it's one thing if you had an offensive line to protect him, it's another to have not an offensive line and not to have wide receivers and have everyone doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
It's not like, and that's the other thing too. It's a first time head coach, it's a first time offensive coordinator, it's a lot of
Yeah.
first time like
Not first
position
time offensive
coaches.
coordinator, but first time play call.
He's really a first time offensive coordinator. It's the first time running the shots. He technically was offensive coordinator with the Browns, but he wasn't a real one. And he was technically offensive coordinator with the Bills at an emergency basis after they
Yeah.
fired the offensive coordinator. But it's the first time he's getting to run his full program of his own.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going to happen. It's better just to be cautious, have the growing pains happen, let Brissett get kind of killed. And then who knows? Maybe May's going to start in week 4, week 5, just because Brissett's not going to be able to handle it. He's going to get hurt because
Yeah.
the odds of it happening are pretty high based
I
off of
honestly
his
wouldn't be
line.
shocked if it's at the home opener that we
Yeah.
go to, that we see him. But
Hmm.
again, kind of goes back to I wanted to talk about something that Gerard Mayo said this morning, either this morning or yesterday morning. I'm mixing the days up. I think
Hmm.
this morning, how Drake May is 100%. If Jacoby gets hurt, he's 100% able to start and 100% able to go in there. But then he also said, we're following the development plan. We're only going to play him when it's ready for him.
Hmm.
And you guys might not like what that looks like, but we're not going to rush the process. If it's not part of the development plan to have him start over Jacoby. But if Jacoby gets hurt, signaling how weak your offensive line is, how can you put him in there to start?
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
just
that's why
something.
I would have rather have a veteran backup. That way, if he's, let's say he is fully ready,
Yep.
and then it's fine, put him in.
Yeah.
If he's not, or you think that he needs more work, rather you're not going to win this season anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well have someone kind of take those hits and then and go from there. Although the other caveat is he could be close to ready. He's
He
made
could
a lot
be.
of progress in the last, I think, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's a quick learner. His footwork's dramatically improved from what it was before.
But
Uh,
again, you don't really know that till you're not really facing real defenses. You're not
yeah.
playing facing defenses that are scheming, or even in
Hmm.
preseason, he hasn't really faced first team defenses. In
No,
practice,
agreed.
he's
But I'm
not
just
facing
saying that if
yeah,
the amount of progress he's made in 2 to 3 weeks, if he's able to make that in another 2 to 3 weeks,
yep,
what is he going to look like? And
that's
basically,
fair.
'cause what is he going to look like now or next week? Because
Yep,
basically, you have a couple weeks off and that we don't get to see. So
yep,
maybe he's going to look even more improved. So maybe it's not as ridiculous to say. Um, Other than that, I think we're both in agreement. It should be
yep,
Jacoby being the starter. May should play either when he's ready or especially when they need to have the offensive line situated. So
yeah. In a
at
perfect world for me,
minimum,
in a
I
perfect world for me, I start Drake May. If you want to see him this year, start him week 13 versus the Colts.
mhm,
It's a home game versus a team I don't think is going to be that good. And then you have the bye the following week. So it gives you 2 weeks to try and correct mistakes, issues that you saw the first week.
mhm.
And then you're facing not a great Cardinals team. You're facing the Bills on the road, which would be a good first test for him. You're facing a rebuilding Chargers team that don't have a great D, and then you're facing the Buffalo Bills the last week of the season at home. In a game that the Bills might sit their starters if they wrapped up the division but don't get the bye.
Yep. No, that's a good spot. I'd say the earliest possible to start him would be week 5, I would say, just because that's why you come home from the 49ers game, you play him against the Dolphins. But that's the earliest I'd want to see him out there, and I don't think the offensive line is going to be a good enough spot there
Yeah,
at that point. But
agree.
we'll see. All right. Overall thoughts on the season. We kind of talked about that offensive line again, issue after issue, and now injuries too, where they are kind of thin
Yep.
everywhere. So based off the injury to So, Vidarian Lowe, Jake Andrews being on IR, they don't really have a center backup. They um, don't really have. They're okay at guard right now, even with So being hurt. So I think Leverett is a much better guard than he is a center. He's
Yep.
not a good center. Um, but and then tackle, they don't know what they're doing. So
Yep.
the way that I see it, the way that I think you see it too, I would go Wallace. I think So is going to be healthy by the time the season,
I
by the
say
time
Wallace or
Sunday.
Okafor depends. Like again, we haven't really seen Wallace too much at left tackle.
Hmm.
That's why if he's not ready, don't throw him out there yet.
Hmm. And then that's the
Could,
other thing. It's really hard. You never usually see a rookie start left tackle their first year. You usually see him go to right tackle first, and then the next year go to left tackle.
yeah.
So you saw that with Soldier. You saw it with who is it? Matt Light, I think.
No,
Did he
Malley started at left
start
tackle.
left tackle? There was someone else that started at right tackle and then moved over to left. It was Soldier and the other guy. Why am I blanking on his name?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The one that went to the Giants.
Nate Soldier.
Was it Soldier?
Yeah.
Volmer. No, was it
Vollmer was only a right tackle.
right
I
tackle?
think
There
he
was
played
someone
left tackle a
else.
little bit, but yeah.
There was someone else that started at right tackle and moved to left. But yeah, so maybe put Chucks there first and then Walls eventually. But you need a window at right tackle.
Yeah.
You don't go paying him $20 million to play right guard when you have options at right guard. You got multiple options at right guard. So that's the biggest thing. We're being a dead horse. We've talked about this
Yeah.
for weeks now. So wide receiver group again. I think this group can actually build to be pretty good. Depending on how they improve and what
Hmm.
happens with them. It's just, are they all going to do well this year? probably it's going to be some growing pains, I would think. How is Tyquan Thornton going to look? Is he going to continue on what he's doing in what he did in preseason training camp? He hasn't been hurt now,
Yep.
other than that one day he missed. And then keeping Booty, I'm really happy about because
Yep.
he showed a lot, and I'm a big fan of his in general. But I like that it's a young group. I like that they can all kind of grow together and
Yep.
mesh together, and hopefully that they end up kind of forming a good knit of dependable receivers for this group. I think having a number one wide receiver, do they have that on this team? No, not now.
Yep.
Could they ever have it with who they have on here? The only really option, I don't really think Polk would ever be that number one, like he's that nice, reliable guy, I think. Is he going to ever be that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type of guy? I don't really see it. I don't know if you see it. I think he's going to be
I
that good number two.
yeah.
So maybe that like T. Higgins kind of like role where you're like a 1B, 2A sort of guy.
I think
Um,
he could be like a better version, like his ceiling is a better version of Jacoby Myers.
mhm,
And Jacoby Myers is a great wide receiver. I don't think any of us would ever say he's wide receiver one, but
mhm,
he's a solid wide receiver. He had to be wide
mhm.
receiver one for the Patriots for a few years, but and I think some people have comped him to say an Anquan Bolden type. I don't really know if I see that. Maybe like a smaller Michael Pittman, I love
I
Michael
think there was
Pittman.
there's a Packers wide receiver before that people compared him to too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Jordy Nelson or someone else, but
So I think he can be a good receiver. I don't know if he can ever be a one. I think
mhm.
Baker has the a very low floor, very high ceiling. I think he's more likely to be a bust than a wide receiver one, but he has the talent.
I think so
But
too, just off of kind of some of the stuff we've seen and then his hands.
yeah,
And it seems like he's had some route running issues where he's not running the correct route. And again, I don't know what's going to happen this year for that, but
yeah,
I know in years past, if that were to happen, he wouldn't be seeing the field. So, all right, well, moving on. Defense, pretty much the same group as last year, minus Judon and Barmore. We didn't really see Jordan last year for much anyway.
yeah,
And then the biggest thing is minus the Belichick, so
yeah.
Steve and Bill.
I think
I
this
think,
is the biggest unknown on the entire team,
Mhm,
even more so than the offensive line, just because Belichick throughout all of his coaching on the entire side, both offense, defense, game planning, but defense especially, it's essentially the same exact defense minus Barmore, but
mhm,
you add Christian Gonzalez. However, you're missing Belichick, who essentially was creating the game plans, was scheming specifically with all his 50 plus years of coaching to attack every opponent's weakness. He was the most prepared coach to get his team to be as prepared as possible. So I think that mixed with Steve Belichick not calling the plays and also contributing to the game plans. Yes, we still have a defensive minded coach who was a coach on the defensive staff last year, Mayo. We have DeMarcus Covington, who was on the staff as well as the defensive coordinator, but he never called the defenses. None of them have ever schemed or been the main ones game planning. So
mhm.
yes, they have same pieces of a very strong defense last year, but are they going to be able to put the players in the same situation to succeed as much as Bill did last year?
Mhm.
And again,
Yeah.
I'm very high on Covington. I thought he should have gotten the job. Um, but again, like in a vacuum, he was probably the most deserving after Mayo took over, and you don't want to lose him. But having him with not much experience mixed with a head coach with not much experience as well, it's just going to be a very big unknown.
Yep, no, agreed. I think the defense for what we saw last year with missing your two biggest pieces and how well they still performed,
Yeah,
I think you're going to see a drop this year in how they play, because Bill knew exactly how to put every person what they did well in the best possible position to do well, and we just
yeah,
don't know if this group is going to do it, and likely not. Just the odds of having someone that great minded again on defense, it's probably not going to happen.
yeah,
It's still going to be good. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be like you're going from top five to 10 defense to going to like a 30 defense. They'll
yeah.
probably still be around a top 10, top 15 defense. You're just not. I don't think you're going to see a top five defense out of this
Yeah,
group.
and we might see more inconsistencies where one week they might have a shutout or close to it,
Hmm.
but the next week they might give up 20, 30 points where again, it's just a lot of inexperience, so there's going to be growing pains. Not saying that it's a bad thing
Hmm.
that either of those coaches aren't uh fit to succeed. But since this is your first time doing it, you're going to learn from some aspects. Even last year, we saw some games where on the defensive side where they just got blown out.
Hmm.
The Cowboys game and the Saints game. Even with how good this D was the rest of the season, there were still some of those games. I think
Yeah.
we might expect more of them this year, but this is still, you have the pieces in place for defense to be good, especially with young players that are hopefully taking another step this year.
Yep, no agreed. All right. Moving on, record prediction. So this is the doom and gloom part. What is your record prediction?
I have them at 3-14. They have a tougher schedule this year. They were the third worst team in the NFL last year, and they somehow have the toughest schedule in the NFL this year, which doesn't make sense to me how that's possible. But
Hmm.
you have a tougher schedule than last year. You hopefully have better quarterback play because it's almost impossible not to have better quarterback play. But losing Belichick's the growing pains. I just don't see a way where they can be a playoff team or even close to 500. And just to benefit of the doubt to giving the benefit of the doubt to Bill, I just put the Patriots record slightly worse than last year.
So I went with 4-13, same record as last year. The reason for that, like you said, tough schedule, like really hard schedule. They're definitely going to have, well, they should have better quarterback play than last year. It's pretty
Should.
hard not to get
Yeah.
better quarterback play. Hell, I think Zappy even played better towards the end than Mac did throughout at some points.
Yeah.
And he blows. So they definitely should have better quarterback play. The way that I see it was like you were saying I think I have a better or worse same record than it was with Bill. If you play those same games over again last year with still Bill as the head coach, they win way more than four
They
games.
do.
It was so many games that came down to one possession at the end that they ended up losing. You see that every year where there's some stat out there that shows like what it would look like on the reverse end. And usually you see that reverse where the next year, if it's the same kind of group of players, if you on the opposite end where you're on like the bad end from that, you would end up winning more games the next year. If you're on the end where you won a lot of games because of it, you end up losing more. And that's why it wasn't surprising when the Raiders actually lost more games after they went away from their I forget the head coach that took over for Gruden,
Yeah.
but they had so many close games where they actually won, where odds are they're not going to win those games again, all of those games again, and then end up losing some of them. So I think the same thing would happen here with if Bill was still back, and he had this quarterback play, they would be winning. They'd be definitely winning more than last year. There'd be
Yeah.
a potential playoff team even with Jacoby Brissett. So the way
And
I see it,
again, I could definitely see them winning more games. I could see them winning anywhere from 2 to 6, maybe 7.
mhm,
But I think even if they do win more games, they're also going to be out of a lot more games than they were last year.
yeah,
Last year, they only had 2 blowouts. Almost all the other games, actually, all 15 of the 17 games, they were in the game with 6 minutes to go.
mhm.
Many of them, they were down by a score or less with less than 6 minutes to go, having the ball, and they had a chance to either tie or win, and they just couldn't execute.
Yep. So that's the way I see it. That's why they'll still win four games this year, where they won't win those games that they should have won last year. Team MVP. I've got Jabril Peppers. I've always liked him ever since he's been on the team. He's now a captain on the team. He just takes a step forward every single year, and hopefully he keeps taking that step forward, even with Bill not being here. But he seems to be one of the players that really attributes a lot of his success to Bill putting him in the right position. So hopefully they keep having him in those right spots, and he keeps that leadership role up.
Yeah, and I thought really long and hard about this. I almost went with Peppers, but I think the person I went with is going to have a huge breakout year, and I think it's going to surprise people. Maybe not surprised that he has a breakout year, but to the extent that I'm expecting is Keon White. With Judon gone, with Barmore out, I think he's going to be a monster on the defensive line and disrupting games the way that Judon and Barmore did. So I love Peppers, and he probably will be the team MVP. But just to throw a little curveball, I'm going with Keon White.
Right. Team surprise player. I'm going Alex Austin. I don't know if he's fully a surprise, but he did take a lot of
I would
steps.
put him in there.
Yeah, he took a lot of steps forward last year towards the end of the season. He looked like a potential boundary cornerback for the Patriots.
Don't
I
tell
think
Greg Bedard that.
I think he's going to kind of continue that, and he'll be a good, really good, dependable starting cornerback for them, either halfway through the year or even earlier.
I'm going Jalen Polk. Again, I know I said he's not a wide receiver one. He might end up being the wide receiver one on the team this year. Uh, Demario Douglas was their number one wide receiver last year, but he dealt with injuries, two different concussions. He's small. And then depending on the quarterback play, especially with a weak offensive line, quarterbacks might be putting him in a position to get hurt just because they have to get the ball out. So just his dependability based on his previous injuries and then his size. I wouldn't be shocked if Polk leads the team in receptions this year and even yards. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him. I know Douglas had around 60 catches last year. I wouldn't be surprised to see Polk with even up to 80 catches, 800 yards.
No, I could definitely see that. Um, team disappointing player. I'm gonna go with Ramondre Stevenson, and I don't think it's anything of his talent or his ability. I think it's gonna be more a reflection on the offensive line and their run blocking schemes. Not the schemes per se, but just the people they have in position to put it there. So I think it's gonna cause more issues, and the fact that teams are gonna know that they want to run the ball and they want to be a kind of a run heavy first team, and they know that he's their best playmaker pretty much on offense. So what do? You take away the best playmaker on the team, and that's Ramondre Stevenson. So I feel like they're going to try and stack the box a lot with him, and I think he'll have a downward year this year, and not from a lack of ability or effort. It'll be more of the surrounding cast around him, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going with a little bit of surprise in Christian Gonzalez. Not to say that I think he's going to end up being a bust overall or anything like that. I think he just had such a high level of play last year, his first four games, that fans are expecting him to be a top three cornerback this year, which he very well could be based on how he played. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him fall down to earth a little bit. He didn't have a great camp, so I'm just putting him just based on where expectations were for him last year during the year and probably taking that next step this year. I am expecting him to fall back a little bit, especially seeing his slightly disappointing camp.
Hmm. All right. Team Rookie of the Year. I think this one we're in pretty much agreement. I've got Polk. I think he's got the best chance of. He's the safest pick, obviously. I say it's
Yeah.
because I think he's always going to be dependable and good. But I think he'll be have a good showing this year.
Yeah, I have Polk. Obviously, I have him as the surprise player, but I have him and then just followed by him, I'm going with Robinson because I think he'll have a pretty good year at guard.
All right. All right, so next, the NFL playoff and Super Bowl predictions. So we'll do Super Bowl first, then we could go AFC, NFC, NFC. So
Yeah.
I've got in the Super Bowl Packers over the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to make it back again just by how the year they shouldn't have gotten there was last year,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't have won was last year just by how kind of poor um they played, or they just didn't have a lot of the weapons around them. This year they have more on offense than they did last year. Their defense is going to take a step backwards, but I think the offense can overcome that. And it just seems like everyone and their mother does not know how to defend the Chiefs, and they don't jam Kelsey at the line until someone does. That's not Bill Belichick. I can't pick against them because it seems like no one knows that they should be doing that. It's the one thing that the Patriots always did. They jammed Kelsey, and then they had help over the top for Hill. Now they don't have Hill, but they've got Worthy. They've got some other playmakers, Hollywood Brown, and it just doesn't seem like anyone knows how to defend this team besides the Belichick's. So until someone shows me that they can, I have to say the Chiefs. But I think the Packers will end up winning because I really like Jordan Love. He shows everything in a quarterback that I would want. He's mobile. He's got a very quick release. He's got a good arm. And he just looks very fluid while playing. He's everything I want Jimmy Garoppolo to be. And because
So,
Garoppolo's got that perfect release. He's got that quick hitch.
eh.
It's got a very nice flowing ball. But Love has the same sort of thing. And that's the benefit to sitting the quarterback. You get to refine their mechanics a little bit.
Yeah, so I have a
Um,
just very quick question
mhm.
related to that. Going back in time, would you in 2020 NFL draft, Patriots have the 23rd pick. knowing hindsight and everything that you know, would you still trade that pick, trade down to get Kyle Duggar, or would you stay where you are and draft Jordan Love, knowing that you have Cam Newton? So chances are Jordan Love is starting year two instead of being on the bench for 3 years.
I think the problem is I think Love needed more than a year to
Yeah.
develop. Um, I just don't know how that would have worked. Because the way that Cam Newton played, I don't think Kraft would ever let him be the starter for one more year. Although he did,
He
here's the
almost
other
did.
caveat though, because he looked better his second year in the Patriots in preseason and training camp, Newton did.
Yeah.
And the only time he actually started looking bad his first year was after COVID when he
Yeah.
wasn't able to practice as much. He lost that on-field stuff. He had to do the off-field kind of coaching and that sort of things. And he's a much more of a hands-on guy. So how would he have looked year two with Josh McDaniels as the quarterback coach? And I think the world of Josh. So he might have made it work. They would have needed another quarterback. They would have needed Cam Newton or someone else to start year two for me to
Yeah.
be fine with that. And I wonder if they could have.
That's fair.
Um, but fuck it. Yeah, I'll say go with I'd draft Love. So,
Okay. That's fair.
what would
I
you
probably
do?
would too, because that means no Mac Jones and higher likelihood of Bill still being here. But
Yeah.
my Super Bowl prediction is Texans over Packers. I just can't go with the Chiefs. I can't see them three-peating, so I have to go with someone else. Bengals still have some issues. Bills have issues. So I'm going with Texans. Casario has done a really good job building that team over there, and they improved a lot last year. And I'm just expecting them to, instead of having a year two drop, I'm expecting them to build upon last year. Then, like you said about the Packers, I think they're going to have a good season this year. So it should be, if it is that Super Bowl, I think that's going to be a fantastic Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Love versus Stroud.
All right. So AFC, just quickly, I got Chiefs, Texans, Bengals, Bills, Chargers, Browns, Jaguars. It's really hard to get that number seven because that could be a wide variety of people.
Yeah.
I went with Jaguars over Jets just because of the Jets' history, where something bad's going to happen to them.
You have the Chargers as
Um,
the number one wild card.
I do. I think a lot of Harbaugh. I think he's going to be able to get them playing, even though that their roster is kind of in flux.
Yeah.
I think with Herbert and Harbaugh, uh, they're going to do really well this year. And we actually get to know is Herbert a loser? Or is Brandon Staley just a loser that makes
Yeah.
everyone else lose around him? So
That's
that'll
fair.
be really, I think, a really interesting kind of tidbit for this season and next season because you could kind of blame the roster this year. But what's Herbert going to look like with Harbaugh as his coach? Is he going to actually take that next step and be a winner? And was it just Staley holding him back, or is he a loser too? So
Yeah.
that'll be an
Well, that's
interesting
fair.
thing.
For me, it's Texans as the one seed, then the Bengals, then the Chiefs, then the Bills. And then, like you said, I had trouble with 5 through 7. I went Jaguars, Browns, and Jets.
All right. So not really anything too surprising there.
Yeah, no
NFC.
Dolphins, no Ravens. I'm expecting Lamar Jackson to get hurt. Not wishing that, but just
Mhm.
his track record with him being healthy all year last year,
Mhm.
but him always getting hurt. I'm kind of expecting that this year. Not hoping for it, but just what I'm predicting.
Yeah, no, I could see the same thing. He gets hurt a lot, so the odds of him staying healthy, especially as he gets older, unless he starts to become more of a pocket kind of quarterback and
Yeah,
less risky with his runs. And if that's the case, then obviously maybe just throw out throw out the Jags and then put the Ravens at 5 and then have the Chargers and Browns move back a spot. But my assumption is he gets hurt. Tua, I think, gets concussed or hurt again. And just you don't get that many concussions and just stop getting them.
yeah,
Uh, and I don't think Tua is that good still. I
agreed.
like, and you're now paying him a ton of money. And I guess it doesn't really hurt you right now. It's going to hurt you in a year or two to come. But,
Yeah,
um, you look at the records and what has happened with Mike McDaniel as their head coach versus what they ended up doing with less of the talent on there with Brian Flores, and it's nothing different.
yeah,
I don't think Mike McDaniel is the type of coach everyone's trying to claim he is
agreed,
because they're not doing any better than they were with Brian Flores, and they look worse towards the end of the year than better. So,
agreed.
um, all All right. NFC. I got Packers, 49ers, Eagles, Bucks, Cowboys, Rams, Lions. The reason I have the Packers ahead of the 49ers is the other thing with the 49ers. I think they'll take a step back this year. And McCaffrey, I think, is due to get hurt again. And so is Debo. I think Debo's been hurt a lot lately, and he's just gonna get more and more as he breaks down. And then McCaffrey gets hurt all the time. He's been relatively healthy with them, but I think we'll see another one. Yours.
So mine, I have the 49ers number one, Bucks two. The reason I have them that high is the other divisions are pretty tough, and I think the NFC South isn't that good at all. I think the Saints suck, the Panthers suck. Falcons have talent, but I'm expecting them to suck since they screwed over Bill. So I'm having Bucks as number two, Packers three, Eagles four, Cowboys five. I have the Bears at six, and then the Rams seven, with the Lions falling back to earth and missing the playoffs.
All right. All right. We're gonna briefly kind of go through the Bengals here. Not really much to go over. But Bengals 9-8 last year. They missed Burrow for 7+ games. One big caveat with the Bengals is they start typically pretty slow.
Yeah,
Joe Burrow has a 1-3 record in week one. So not a predictable week one winner. And just the team overall in general starts pretty slow. Every year they do pretty poorly and they start winning at the end. So it takes
yep,
them. I think they kind of really follow that Bill mantra where the first kind of 4 weeks is you're really getting to know your team more, and that's when you kind of pivot and change around there, and then that's when you kind of start the season week 5. So we got Joe going up against Joe Burrow, and here's the other question mark: how is he going to play with that injury he had? He's, I think, the only person to ever really have that injury and play quarterback. And with or without Chase, my guess is Chase still isn't practicing. I doubt he's going to play. But what is that going to look like? So
yeah.
yeah, I think those are the biggest kind of question marks. That's if you want to have hope for this game, those are your biggest ones. That Jamar Chase probably isn't playing. Joe Burrow and the Bengals overall start slow week 1 to 4, and week 1 you have all of those weeks up beforehand to prepare. So this is the most prepared you could be for this game. So you could give it your all, have some flashy plays, some trick plays. You can give it all for this game to try and win and steal one. And what is Joe Burrow going to look like with that injury? What happens if his hand gets hit? Is it going to get worse or what have you? So I think those are the biggest things for this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, it's tough. If you want to have hope, the Bengals, like you said, always start slow. Last year they started 1-3, and then they started winning some games until Burrow got hurt, and then they just missed out on the playoffs. The year before in 2022, they started the year 2-3, and then they ended up making it all the way to. Did they make it to the Super Bowl in 23? No, in 22. 20,
I think last year,
21,
the year
20,
before last year,
yeah,
so
2021 they made
22.
it
Hmm.
to the Super Bowl, but so they started 2-3. They made the playoffs, but then lost in the playoffs. But if they always start slow, Burrow's injury is concerning. It is the first week. You never know. There are some unexpected aspects of it. Van Pelt was a coach in the NFC or in the AFC North for 4 years, game planning against the Bengals twice a year. So he is pretty familiar with them. So there is some things to be optimistic about of the Patriots having a chance. Who knows if Jamar Chase plays, but um, I guess that's and then another thing to be optimistic about is the Bengals defense last year was pretty bad. Second most yards allowed per game at 375, fifth worst passing defense, 250 yards allowed per game, seventh worst rushing defense, 126 points per or 126 yards per game. So they were pretty bad in both aspects, pass and rush defense. So having an offense that isn't great, maybe that gives them some optimism, some momentum, some aspects to exploit. So there's definitely a chance for the Patriots. I'm not expecting them to win,
Hmm.
but all of these factors combined is something to possibly look forward to.
No, exactly. And the Bengals for years have had a pretty poor secondary. So it's something that, and that's the thing about having a bad offensive line and the quarterback situation that you have. Are you going to be able to exploit that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll see. If you're able to kind of let the pressure not have so much pressure, and able to put something together, or you can do a little bit of damage here and maybe squeak out a win. We'll see what happens here, but not really expecting too much. So a couple caveats here. Some players that we do know that are familiar with: Mike Gesicki, tight end, Trent Brown at right tackle, and Ted Karras at center. So a couple of familiar faces there. So the offensive line has, assuming that Trent Brown gives an effort, and that's a big if. Their offensive line will definitely be improved with him on the team, and then they have Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle now, Alex Kapp at right guard, and Cordell Volson at left guard. So their offensive line has slowly started to improve. It was terrible
Yeah.
Burrow's
And
first
then
year.
their backup right tackle right now is their first round pick this year, and Amarius
Mhm.
Mims. So he's their future tackle. Again, I don't know where they plan on having him in the future, if they want him at left tackle and then moving Orlando Brown to right or keeping him at right tackle. But if Trent Brown doesn't show the effort, they have a viable replacement.
All right. So we're gonna get into predictions. Oh, I almost typed the wrong score. I don't think they're gonna be that bad. Prediction time for the Patriots. I'm gonna pull up the line because I forgot to do the beforehand. But I'll let Eric go into what his score will be, and then we'll obviously say whether or not that hits line or not, and why you're saying they're gonna score that.
So I'm expecting the Patriots to lose 24-17. I do expect the Bengals to be good this year, but with everything we mentioned earlier, Van Pelt knowing the defense, the slow starts for them possibly not having Chase. I expect the Patriots to at least put up a fight. Again, is that touch? I'm not willing to say what if one of those touchdowns is on the defensive side, a pick six or fumble return or kick return. I just think they'll eventually get to 17 points, but I don't think it'll be enough.
All right. I've got them losing 17-6. I don't think they're going to score a touchdown. I think they're going to have two field goals and a missed field goal by Sly. And I don't think they'll reach the end zone offensively. If they did get a defensive touchdown, it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not going to put my eggs in a basket for a defensive
Yeah.
touchdown like we tried to hope for last year. So I'm going to say 17-6. I don't think the Bengals will score too much just because they start off slow. Patriots defense could be good. And yeah, they're going to hold them there. So 17-6, they don't hit the over under was 40 and a half. That's 23, so they won't hit the over. And then
They hit
they
the
would
over for me by half
all
a
right.
point.
And then the spread is 8. So I think the Bengals handily have that.
Yeah.
Um and they don't in yours. So
Yep.
the
They don't
Patriots
have it in
are
mind and they hit the over by half a point.
yeah, so interesting kind of bets there. Bet responsibly. We're not betting experts, but go
Based
with
on
what you
Kevin's
may.
history, do the opposite.
Do the opposite, except for my golf picks. That's the only one you would want to listen to. All right, so that kind of tidies up this podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back next week breaking down what's could be a Patriots loss, hopefully a Patriots win, and go from there, and then kind of preview the up and coming home opener game against the Seattle Seahawks. So thank you again. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Patriots Pod, and then also on TikTok as well. Slow down on the videos there, but they'll be coming more and more as the season goes on. There'll be more videos, more content there from that way. And hopefully neither of us turn into the FSU fan that is in hiding right now. So thank you everyone. Talk to you guys next week.